Welcome to the Den.
Welcome back to our 6th episode of the Den, guys. I'm Merrick DiCarolis, along with my co-host Caden Martz. How you doing, Caden?
Pretty good, man. I'm excited to talk about high school
Absolutely.
football.
Missed a week. I'm really excited to talk about all the news.
Yeah, a lot to talk about too.
Absolutely.
A lot to talk about, including our homecoming game versus Wekiva on Friday. We beat them 52-27. Big win. Looking at our predictions, I of course had 35-25. Still learning. They're getting better, but underestimate that offense.
Not a bad prediction, just not as good as mine. My prediction, obviously, 42-28, much closer than Caden's. Still underestimating the offense, though. That offense is one of the best in the state. Obviously, you guys heard Coach O talk about it at the pep rally. Second best offense in the entire state.
Oh, yeah, and
explosive.
Talk about explosive. I'm talking about Chance Nixon.
Absolutely. What heck of a game from Chance. Again, 104 yards on 15 carries, had a touchdown as well. It's brings his total up to 613 total yards on the season in just 5 games. Really impressive.
Very impressive. And 104 yards on that game. We saw Brock Joyce, 9 carries, 63 yards, 2 touchdowns. The guy's a touchdown machine.
Absolutely.
Nine touchdowns on the season is ridiculous. Also, our quarterback, Jerome Curry, 3 carries, 66 yards. Yep. Very impressive.
Doing it with his legs. Obviously, his rib injury is healed up that we were talking about earlier in the season, and he's put on a performance. Ended up going 7 for 9 on the game, too, 92 yards and a touchdown. Can't ask for much more from him there. Great game.
I mean, if you look at our defense, 27 points given up does not tell.
It does not tell the whole story of the game. Not at all. They had only given up 7 points at the half. We really took our foot off the gas pedal in the second half. Let Wekiva, feel good about themselves for a little bit after the beatdown they had in the first half.
Yeah, 5 sacks from our D-line across 4 players. Just really impressive. You look at them against better teams, and these performances are showing that they can hold up with these teams.
Brady Manning notched his 2nd interception of the season, 2 in the last 2 weeks. Really good from him, senior safety. Joey Joya also scoring a touchdown, his first ever varsity touchdown. Obviously picked up a fumble, returned it right at the end of the half. No time left on the clock. Really good. Really set the tone for the whole first half.
When that happens to your team at the end of the half, you're demoralized.
Done. You know the game's over.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on here to our post-week 6 Central Florida high school rankings. Number 1, Cocoa at 3-2. Lost to Venice, top 20 team in the country, but the game was 51-54. What do you think about that, Merrick?
I think watching Cocoa, just seeing that, I think they're one of the only teams in Florida. Obviously, they're the only team in Central Florida that can perform with these top teams in the nation. 51-54 to a top 20 team in the nation. Come on. That's a good performance. Hart had a great game. 527 yards, 4 touchdowns, a really good bounce back from his IMG performance. He really showcased himself in that game, proving that he's the number 1 quarterback in Central Florida.
Yeah, it's very impressive, and we'll probably get to the other candidate for that later.
Absolutely.
But, I mean,
in our next ranking. Jones in our number 2 slot, 6-0 on the season, playing great of late, great performances. They played 3 games in 10 days, Edgewater, Osceola, and Winter Park, getting W's in all of those games.
One of those games was really close. That Osceola game, I would have loved to be in that crowd, man.
Absolutely. An overtime game. Vernell Brown had 12 catches, 195 yards, and somehow he wasn't the best player in that game.
Oh, yeah.
His quarterback, Darion Coleman, threw for 488 yards, 4 touchdowns.
It's ridiculous.
An insane performance. We've never seen that from Darion before. That's the first time we've seen him perform at that level, and he proved that he could do it.
And there's a funny contrast between these teams. You look at Jones, 488 passing yards, Osceola, 0. It's ridiculous. It's like Madden 20 out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Jones rushing yards held only about 85. Osceola 310. We talked about this guy a lot. Tavion Swint, one of the best runners in Central Florida.
The best runner in Central Florida, in my opinion, easily. Kid's really talented. He's carrying this Osceola offense week by week.
Yeah, and I got to imagine this game is probably not as close if they're not playing all these back-to-back games.
Oh, no, definitely not. Jones has to feel exhausted after 3 games in 10 days. It's ridiculous.
Our 3rd ranking, Eau Gallie, 6-0, and they destroyed a university team 2 weeks ago, 40-7. I'm sure we'll get to them later, but 71 yards from their quarterback on 28 attempts. It's insane defense.
Yeah, Eau Gallie really proved something in this game. University, on the other hand, my goodness.
Yeah.
I think University got fraud checked against Eau Gallie, really. 40-7. University's best one on the season had been against Mainland, who's, I believe, 1-4 at this point.
I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah, University definitely not as good as we thought.
Yeah, Eau Gallie's running back, Tay Welsh, 15 carries, 138 yards. A good performance there.
Solid performance.
Yep. They beat a good Titusville team, 7-3, which is a little scary, but even scarier, this guy you love, Joseph Allen, 20 yards in a game. That's embarrassing, man.
Hey, only a sophomore. A lot of room to improve. He's got the traits. He'll be fine. Still, 7-3. Not a spectacular performance from Eau Gallie.
Yeah, and those 7 points, the only way they scored that was an 80-yard fumble recovery touchdown. Yeah. So you got to be scared for that offense. But
the defense, on the other hand, back-to-back weeks, giving up 10 points in 2 weeks. That's very impressive. On to our number 4 ranking. We got TFA, the First Academy, still undefeated, 6-0 on the season, coming off a 41-28 win over a good Atlantic squad. They ran for 254 yards on the ground, a real dominant performance.
Yeah, and a lot of those yards, 106 of them to be exact, coming from their quarterback, Solomon Georges. This guy is quick, man. We don't see that many of these in Central Florida right now, these dual threat quarterbacks. And
a lot of pocket passers in Central Florida.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure he's going to start getting his name out there with them climbing in these rankings. Defense played great, 3 interceptions. And you look at the score, 41-28. If they don't get 3 interceptions.
Yeah, it's a different game.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those interceptions are leading to touchdowns, too, It translates. Turnovers translate to points on the offensive side of the ball, and that's proven with their 41 points.
Yeah. That game was 2 weeks ago. Last week's game, Orlando Christian Prep beat them pretty easily, 39-13. 201 rushing yards again. Very good rushing attack from this TFA team.
Absolutely. TFA, they look good. They look really good. Definitely state title contenders this year.
Number 5, we got Seminole, undefeated at 5-0, and they beat a very good Lake Wales team, 41-38. And finally, we have been waiting. Michael Clayton, 213 yards, 3 touchdowns, putting up the numbers.
Absolutely. Michael Clayton, obviously, like you said, we've been waiting for this for a while. He's got all the offers. He's got the 4 stars, but he has yet to perform. And this was his first real good performance against a really good Lake Wales squad. 3
backs had 135 yards between the 3 of them. An interception, 3 fumble recoveries. Everything just seemed to go right for Seminole this game.
Absolutely.
But it's still a little scary. We can't have them too high. 41-38 with 3 fumble recoveries is like you'd like to see a better score line there. But Lake Wales is also a great squad.
Yep. Lake Seminole this week, they played Lake Brantley, beat them 61-8, making them 5-0. Nothing much to talk about from the Lake Brantley game. Lake Brantley is not a good squad.
Bums.
They're definitely in need of a bit of a rebuild. Maybe ditch the wing tee and move on to something a little more
modern.
More modern, yeah. More of a modern offense.
Yeah.
At number 6, we've got Dr. Phillips, a massive win over Lake Mary, 26-21.
I wouldn't have predicted that.
Absolutely not. That's a huge upset. The biggest upset we've seen all year, to be honest, easily. Lake Mary, they were coming off a loss against Lakeland, a really, really close game. I honestly thought Lake Mary, after the Lakeland game, I had more respect for Lake Mary, but losing to Dr. Phillips, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, Dr. Phillips only recently entered our top 10 and
climbing all the way up to 6.
Oh, yeah. And we got to pinpoint this problem. Noah Grubbs, man, he's had some sketchy weeks and only 21 points in a huge game. It's scary.
Absolutely. You expect a lot more from Grubbs. You expect a lot more from this Lake Mary offense. 21 points. This is supposed to be one of the best offenses in the entire state. They're just not putting it together. And Lake Mary, they're going to come in at 7th for us. They're 3-2. They did bounce back after their Dr. Phillips win against a not very talented Hagerty squad, 52-3. Lake Mary actually had a chance to beat Dr. Phillips. They got the ball back, down 5 with 3 minutes left, weren't able to put together a drive. And you got to pin that on Grubbs again.
Yeah, I mean, there's quarterbacks with that it factor. And
exactly.
They're going down and scoring that.
You hate to put everything on one player, but when the one player is supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, it's hard not to.
Number 8, we got Edgewater. Currently 4-2, but we know how talented this team is. Dominated Apopka 35-0. 5 running backs, between them 159 yards. And gosh, I mean, Edgewater, they're playing good, but Apopka, what happened, dude?
Yeah, the defense can't do everything, If the offense is going to go out there and score 0 points, there's nothing the defense can do. You can't win scoring 0 points.
Yep.
Scientifically proven, you can't win with 0 points.
After that Apopka game, they beat Lyman 50-0. Not much to say there.
We know Edgewater's a really talented squad, and we know Lyman, not much of one. So
yeah, and you got to assume as these weeks go on, they're just going to slowly climb their way up.
Oh yeah, they're just going to keep climbing. I don't see a loss on Edgewater's schedule for a while. All right, coming in at number 9, we have our only new entry of the week, West Orange. 5-0, wins versus Titusville. They just beat Apopka 25-7. Again, another Apopka scoring 7 points. You're not going to win doing that. 25 points against that defense is really impressive.
Yeah, West Orange, they like to spread the ball around a lot, and they even split reps kind of between their quarterbacks, a freshman and a sophomore duo, Brian Dillard and Andrew Chung. That's a lot of trust to put in 2 very young quarterbacks, but they're getting the results.
Absolutely. I think eventually the season, we're about halfway through the season, they're going to have to pick one at some point, in my opinion.
Very true.
I think it's hard. It's really, really hard to win with 2 quarterbacks. We saw this last year with the Jones squad. Jones was splitting reps between Darion Coleman and Travion Jackson. Jackson's at Florida State now, but Coleman was just obviously more talented than him, and I think it cost Jones a shot at a state title.
Yeah, you know what they say. If you have 2 quarterbacks,
you got none.
You got no quarterbacks. Number 10, we have University. Mentioned them a little bit earlier, but man, we're dropping them 3 spots this week. Lost to Eau Gallie. They beat a Flagler Palm Coast team 34-19 last week. I'm sure we've talked about the running back before, Anthony May, 224 yards, 3 touchdowns, but you just can't lose to Eau Gallie by that much. And still
losing to Eau Gallie, it's nothing. It's nothing to scoff at. Right? Eau Gallie's a great squad, but losing to them 40-7, it's
embarrassing.
That's a fraud check right there. And University, they're gonna have to put it together. Next week they've got Jesuit.
It's a huge game.
It's a massive game. Jesuit's a really, really good squad. It's a real prove-it game for University.
Yeah, and honestly, if they go out there and they lose it close, that's a plus.
Yep, absolutely. They just can't have another breakdown like they had against Eau Gallie. If they have a breakdown like that, their season could be in trouble.
One of the teams I wanted to put in this week, just looking at their record, I couldn't. Osceola, they're 4-2 right now. We talked about their game versus Jones a little bit earlier, but that's a very impressive game, very close game.
Absolutely,
against
Jones,
one of the best teams in Central Florida.
Yeah. The second best team in Central Florida according to our rankings.
Oh, yeah.
When you take one of those teams to overtime, that's an impressive performance. Yeah, we've said this many times. You can find a lot of good in a loss, and I think we found a lot of good in Osceola in their 35-28 overtime loss versus Jones.
Oh, yeah, and honestly, it's a hard team to rank. Their defense is beautiful. 8 sacks versus Jones, but when you're not throwing the ball at all, it's hard to see that you're going to beat these great teams.
Absolutely. They need to add some sort of other threat besides their running backs and Tavion Swin.
Yeah, huge games in the coming weeks.
Yeah, we're going to learn a lot about Osceola in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, hopefully a Vieira win should not be too difficult. Apopka, apparently they are not it anymore, but Lake Wales game is going to be huge.
Absolutely, that's a
big
massive
game.
Performance.
All right, we're going to move on to our last portion of the podcast. We got a little bit of Hagerty Hate this week.
Rivalry week, the Mayor's Cup.
Score predictions for this game. I'm going to go with 48-3.
I think this is going to be an absolute thrashing. Hagerty's defense all season has not looked impressive at all. My prediction, 59-14. I think Hagerty's, they're not going to score. I think it's going to be really similar to the Wekiva score. I don't think they're going to be able to manage much in the first half. I think it's going to be 35-0 going into halftime, and then Hagerty will score a couple of garbage time touchdowns to make themselves feel better, pat themselves on the back a little bit.
It's a good prediction, using last week's results to your advantage. All right, guys, that'll probably wrap us up. Please do DM us with any questions. It could be any sport, anything you guys really want to talk about. Oviedo Now, the Instagram. We'd love to get those on the podcast. Check out our Instagram with all of our stories on oviedojournalism.com. Listen to our friends' podcast, The Roar. Learn about some pop culture. They even talked about a little bit of sports.
Absolutely.
Tyreek Hill incident. But, I hope you guys have a good one.
Have a great day, guys.
See ya.